All right, Amy, we are recording and I got a note from IT saying we're good. So I think if you're ready to go, we should start.
Great. Well, welcome to the March 8th Oshkosh Advisory Park Board meeting. Ray, do you think we have any visitors? It didn't look like it.
I am not seeing any at this time.
Okay. Well, just make sure you're muted when you're not speaking. And if anyone, pops in for citizen statements, we will try to catch those people and let them have a time to say something. So Stacy, if you want to do roll call.
All right. Bartelt.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Dearth.
Here.
Royal.
Here.
Hudak. Martin.
Here.
Metz.
Here.
Millet. Lester, are you there? I see you're there. There you are.
Here.
All right. Palmieri.
Here.
All right. And then if Hudak does not show up, Tanisha, you are going to be our voting member for tonight if Devin is not able to make the meeting.
She said she's trying to get on the meeting. It's loading.
Okay.
And I guess, Amy, depending on what time you need to leave, Amy needs to leave at a certain point to get to a family commitment. We will determine voting alternate member will be at that time. It may be Tanisha and Jamie, depending on who is all here. So stay tuned.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is the February 8th minutes. Any comments, concerns, additions?
Move to accept as written. Second.
All right. So we still, we have to vote on all of them still. So Bartelt.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Dearth.
Aye.
Royal.
Aye.
Devin, we are moving, Royal moved to approve and Dearth seconded to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Do you approve? I see you're on now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Martin.
Yes.
Metz.
Yep.
Millet.
Yep.
And Palmieri.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to old business. Discuss the draft Lakeshore Park. Ray, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, really the last month has been spent going back and forth with Smith Group on if the board remembers back in February, we talked about the capacity of the assembly room and the current design that Smith Group was working on was for 100-person capacity in the assembly room. And at that time, there was some discussion about the potential of making that the capacity a little bit larger. And so board members had asked me to see if Smith Group could provide cost estimates to increase the size. And then we had a request if we wanted to decrease it as well to 75 from that 100. So what I've been doing is working with Smith Group to get you some numbers, and I included that information in your packet. One thing you're going to see on there, it's the information that Smith Group has been providing us has always been about that assembly room capacity. They did provide me with the total building capacity. Again, when we're talking building capacity, it's inside the building. It's not what could be allowed out on any additional deck space or anything. So what I had them do was give me a breakdown of the assembly room capacity, as well as what that meant for the total building capacity. And so there are people that need to be accounted for inside the building outside of that assembly room. So like the kitchenette, there's a capacity of like 2 people, each restroom, 2 people. And there's obviously open space coming into the building through the hallway or foyer that accounts for, again, some available occupants. So you can take a look at the chart that I provided. I wanted to give you the breakdown of all those numbers. And then along with each of those is right now an estimated project cost based on those building sizes. You'll see that those projected costs are higher than that 2.6 that we were at last month. But I want to caution you that that 2.6 did not include those items which I've included, or Smith Group and I have included now. If you take a look at the asterisk, though the 2.6 did not include the initial cost for Smith Group's design services, any increase for services that Smith Group would need if we increase the size and the budget, which we've done already, but also any construction administration costs, building demo, 20% capacity, and then, or 20% contingency, not capacity, I'm sorry, and then bonding and insurance costs. So what we're providing to you tonight is basically our projected estimated costs for each of these building sizes. I have shared this information with the finance director and the city manager, because obviously we are short on funds at the 2.6 and also with these additional costs added. So what we've been able to do, working with those two individuals, starting to identify some potential funding sources for the project. And the city manager and finance director and I have been looking at other city projects from the past that have come in under budget where there's some available funds. Some of those are parks projects, others are projects just outside of our department. We're also looking at and being optimistic about some potential donated funds or some sponsorship dollars coming in as well. So as I shared this information with those two individuals, we are comfortable, and this is up for discussion by the board, but let me step back. I also look back at the Lakeshore Park Master Plan. And when we were going through the public input process for that master plan, it was noted in that document that we should plan for a Four Seasons building to accommodate a capacity of 120 to 150 people. So if you recall, we reduced that down a little bit earlier on in the design process because the numbers were going up. So I did want you to make sure that you're aware of that. So I'm comfortable, and so is the city manager and the finance director, saying that if the board decides that the 125 assembly room capacity with a total building capacity of 150, we're optimistic that between those sources we're looking at, that we would be able to come up with the funding for that size building. Of course, you know, you could, if you want to talk about going smaller, anything larger than that, we're not very comfortable and optimistic that we can commit to raising another $300-some thousand. So that's kind of the background on where we're at. That's really a lot of the discussion I want to have tonight with you and get some feedback from you on your comfort level. Depending on where the direction that you want to go tonight, we do have it on the council agenda for tomorrow evening for the council to consider an amendment to Smith Group's agreement with us based on which capacity limits basically we move forward with. And so depending what happens tonight, I'll report that to the council if it's different than what we had put into our council memo. I just want to check my notes to make sure that I covered everything. As far as the entire project cost, that's something that the city manager and finance director and I continue to work on. And what we're planning is to have a project funding plan going to the common council at an upcoming meeting as well. So with that, I will open it up for any questions or thoughts from the board.
What is a typical wedding size nowadays, wedding reception size? And do you think we could rent it more often with a bigger capacity?
I guess I can't speak to a typical wedding size now. I know during COVID, it's obviously considerably reduced. And I also think that, you know, for people that want to rent this for a wedding, I don't think it's going to accommodate those larger mid-sized weddings. I still think they're going to look for the other venues that we have outside of this building within the city. And that's not our intent, obviously, is to try to compete with those. And that's why I'm trying to find that middle ground where we're not doing that. And I don't think if we stick with some of these projected capacities that we'd be doing. So I can't answer your question, Becky. I'm sorry, because I think it really depends on how people come out of the COVID and how comfortable they are.
It seems to me, Ray, that if we went with the size, that option that you have bolded in there, that's probably, I mean, I know what Becky's saying about size of wedding, but I think it also probably gives us the biggest flexibility down the road. So maybe we don't fill it all the time, but it gives us options for user groups. I like the idea of that, and I think by the design that Smith Group shared with us in the past, I don't think there's going to be an option to add on to it anytime soon, so we probably should get that flexibility now instead of wish we had it later, kind of like we talked about last time. So I support this.
You support the 125, 150, Tony, or which?
Yeah, I
Okay.
do. I think if you're, I'm glad you're handling the finances. The board doesn't have to do that, but if you're comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with the increase.
Ray, this is Lori Palmieri. Just want to bring up, Ray and I talked earlier today, and one of the questions that I had was whether or not we're separating out, because this doesn't appear to maybe encompass the parking, and if there's an increase in the capacity for 25 to 50 people, what that does to the parking and costs associated with that.
Yep, and that was a good question. I did follow up with Lee from Smith Group. We had a phone call today, and he did inform me that when they were looking at these varying capacities, he did reach out to our planning staff, and the 82 to 85 car parking lot that we currently have planned would accommodate any size of these different capacities that we have listed, with some additional spaces as well.
So just to clarify though, the cost here includes the parking, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. And then we don't have to decide now, am I correct, on the additional decking? Is that like our next iteration or discussion?
Yeah, basically what we need to do is give Smith Group the go ahead on which direction they should be designing. So if you recall, what we've been working on up till now is basically a schematic or a conceptual design saying, yeah, we agree to the direction we're going. Now let's start refining that. So once we provide the direction saying, yes, we want to go with the assembly room capacity of X with a total building capacity of Y, what they will do start doing then, Mayor, is working on some of those more of those details and how it affects the building, how it might affect the deck if it's on two sides of the assembly room, 3 sides, or whatever that might be. And that will come back to this board as we continue to work through that final design stage. And there was other, I know Deb and others had brought up some other things as far as the kitchenette and the restrooms and so forth. And they made note of that. They're working on that as they continue on the plan. And they've made adjustments to the plans based on the input that we provided, I think, 2 months ago now as well. So you'll see that as we come forward with the next step in the design.
So Ray, this is Deb. I have some other concerns. First of all, this is a park for our taxpayers, the ordinary citizens of Oshkosh. We're not building a building for weddings. At least that's what I think. And it concerns me when you say the city's going to look for money from other parks that may need improvements or other places the city has money and put it in a building. I think that's poor use of money, of our taxpayers' money in a time of a pandemic. It doesn't make sense to me. And also the cost overall is huge. And if we're going to find that kind of money, then I'd like to see us do some more sustainability to the building and put that extra money so that we have maybe solar panels, or we're thinking of the future, because this building is going to be around for maybe 50 years. My other concern is if this building gets rented out on a very regular basis for weddings, then what are the ordinary citizens? Like if I want to come to the park with my grandkids, it's like we're shuttled to one small area, or maybe there's 2 bathrooms. Again, I'm still on the bathroom thing. It's not enough. it doesn't, I don't see it as a park for the citizens of Oshkosh. It seems like we're trying to build a building for people to hold events or weddings. I'm fine with people doing that, but if it's busy all the time and the parking lot's full all the time for some paid events, there's other businesses actually in Oshkosh that do that, and we don't want to take away from their revenue either. My question to you is, how much have we asked the taxpayers of Oshkosh what kind of building they want? I know initially when this whole park started, that was the park itself, that it was done, but I would suggest that we do some kind of a poll and at least find out from a broad section of people who are interested as to, what do they envision in the building? I don't think it's up to just the 8 of us or and the council to spend the taxpayer money this way, making a big building.
I guess I don't want us to focus on it as a wedding venue. I guess when we are looking at it, we're looking at it, the requests that come into us on a regular basis are for areas big enough to have a anniversary party, a birthday party, family events, family reunion types. And I guess, we're looking at it as a building, which it is, but I look at it as a shelter as well, a rentable shelter, just like in our parks that are rented on a regular basis. This building will be used by the public, by the taxpayers. It'll be available for rental, just like a picnic shelter. It'll be available for use by our department programs, which we will schedule it for our programs and public use. We're not taking money from projects. The money that is being looked at and potentially considered by the finance director and the city manager are projects from throughout the city that the tax dollars have been saved or not spent on the project. So again, it's looking at and trying to identify sources of funds in addition to requesting some donations and sponsorships.
Do you have any data to say like how often you turn people away? Like what times, how many times throughout a year are we lacking space for public events? I mean, just roughly, is it 10% of the time, 50% of the time?
I think it's difficult because we don't have a facility like this. Stacy can speak to, I guess, how many times we might turn people away from a shelter use, but I don't know if we're comparing apples to apples on that. So I don't have a number, and I guess we just know from experience in other communities and looking at similar type facilities that it is a need. It's something that we've heard from our residents. It's something that we've seen other communities that they are utilized, and they're utilized in a variety of ways for the general public as well as for the Park and Rec department. So I can't give you a number on that really.
So I just, again, would urge that there be some kind of a poll or some kind of an asking of the citizens, if you had this building of this is available, how would you use it? What would, I don't know how we find out from some citizens.
Well, I think we went through that process when we went through the park planning process, because it was discussed at this board level, as well as the public input sessions that we heard from. So I guess we had that discussion, and I think that's where we brought it back to the board, and the board said our priority is this building, so let's start moving on it and start the design. And other board members can jump in, but that's, I guess, where we started out and where we got the input from. And not only that, but all these meetings since when did we start? November, December, maybe, on this, have all been publicly noted, and neighbors have been invited and so forth. So I don't want to say we've done that, but I think we've done it, and we need to make sure that we have a consultant on board who is waiting for us to make a decision on which direction to give them, because they're waiting on the project that we said was going to be happening. So,
Well, and
So-
Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, Stacy, did you mention that these places book out like a year in advance?
Our policy is that you are allowed to book up to a year in advance. South Park Shelter 1, especially during the busy summer months, the one that that has a capacity of 150 people, that definitely is the first one to get rented out, and very frequently it is rented out a year in advance, especially for graduation parties and such. So I have had very few weddings, but mostly people want anniversary parties, birthday parties, family reunions, and graduation parties in the summertime. And then I get 1 to 2 calls, throughout the winter of people asking for, do we have a year-round shelter that they can rent? So I think it would definitely get used. I'm not seeing it as a wedding thing. I'm seeing it more reunions, anniversary parties, birthday parties, family get-togethers, things like that.
So I would echo Tony, Ray, and say approval for the up in the numbers as well.
And I agree with Devin and Tony as well. I think the 125 is good. And I definitely, during the planning part and all of the public input at the beginning of this project, the building was definitely high on people's radar, and that we don't wait. They didn't want to wait 10 years to see this project happen. So I'm glad that we're, moving along and have an end in sight on getting this out for our citizens.
Ray, just kind of a follow-up. What do you envision, or what is envisioned for the use of the assembly space when it is not reserved for a private party? So how would the public use that space? I mean, has there been any discussion on that? Number one. Number two, do we have documentation of that public input?
So to address the question about how it will be used, the indoor of the building is going to be a secured building unless it's used by one of our events. It's not, we won't have staff down there scheduled to be there 7 days a week throughout the daylight hours. So it'll be for community events, special events, rented by the community and so forth. So for us, when we look at our programs, we're looking at, there's potential for some winter events going on out there that we can do some joint programming or collaboration with skiing, snowshoeing, those types of things where it'll be used as a warming area, a place where they can come in and get out of the weather for concessions, and those types of things. As far as the public input throughout the process, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, we had the all the well, it'll be in our meeting minutes as well, but it was out on the website. And I don't know if all the meetings and everything are still out there or not, because it was back in 1819, I think. I don't recall what's on the website right now. But we definitely would have meeting minutes for that information, as well as when it came to the Parks Board for discussion of what they would be as well.
So then, if we're assuming that the assembly space would be reserved for either community events or our programming or other events, wouldn't that primarily be like weekends, and then the rest of the time it's just sitting empty and unused if it's secured?
No, I would see that there would be some potential uses by community organizations, possibly Boy Scout, Girl Scout, Rotary type meetings, community organizations. So I think it provides an opportunity for a wide variety of uses, and it's not just the weekend rental or an evening rental in our programs. And we do have some programs that would be offered in the weeks as well, but no, I just don't see it as the weekend and being locked up during the weekdays.
Ray, I just want to add, I do support the 150 person capacity as well. And wouldn't the annual survey that the city does also give some clarity on what citizens have been requesting as far as what's been needed in parks and what's not been needed in parks? That's already a survey that's been done. Maybe that could give some guidance too on answering some of those questions.
We can look, Scott. I'm not sure if it gets that specific to our department. It may, it talks about satisfaction and cleanliness and maintenance and type things, but we can take a look at that. But I can't think offhand if it gets that specific or not.
Well, they broke down everything in their presentations of what people wanted you know, the percentages and all of that kind of stuff way back when it first started.
Are you talking with the park master planning?
Yeah, when we did all those surveys and had people come to and meet us at the convention center, and they completed little pieces of paper of what they wanted.
I'll echo what Becky said. I know that Deb, you weren't there for that at that time. I felt like it was a exhaustive
Yeah,
like input for that time. Whereas we had multiple meetings and multiple presentations, and then the board heard all that feedback. And so I think we probably would have to look at back in the minutes, but it did seem like like what Ray said, the community wanted something that was coming soon and a point to say this is actually happening, and not we like a kind of like a focal point for the parks. And I think that's why the building was a big part of that, a need. And they that was something that I really I'd have to go back through the minutes. I'm sure that Stacy could do that, but it was a lot of feedback that we heard during that time.
Scott,
And
if
I just want to ask too then, so if that was an older set of feedback, how did we end up planning for a smaller capacity with Smith Group?
when we started to see the dollar figure or the estimated cost of the project continuing to go up until we could sit down and start talking to some potential donor sponsors and also with the finance director, we had to look at reducing something. And we started there with starting to at least to take a look at the building size. How would that affect the potential cost of the project?
So they've allowed that there'll be enough parking for the 150 people or whoever might, for an event. Where will the people that are using the park for something else, will they just park on the street then? If they're there to use the trail or do something else? Because they weren't going to the event, where would they park?
They did say that there's more than enough parking for the 125 to 50 based
Yeah.
on so there should be available parking in the parking lot. Outside of that, there will be some on the street in that cul-de-sac area. And then eventually there will be further parking lots in different areas of the park for when they want to access the park. So there's, I think, one on the west side by the hotel. And then I think in the plan, it also calls for one potentially down by the ball field by Mary Jewel in that area as well. So additional parking is planned in addition to this parking lot as well. Scott, if I can just go back to your comment, you said you support 150. Were you looking at assembly room or building capacity at that, just so I can make note of it?
No, I'm sorry, the 125 to 150.
Okay, I
150
just wanted
total capacity.
Okay, thank you. Any,
Yeah, this is Lester. We if you guys are comfortable with being able to raise the money, I'm comfortable with the 125, 150. And it is a little difficult now, as some of you haven't been through building processes like this, but it is way more expensive right now than it has been at most any other time to build a building like this. So there are some, it seems more expensive, but that's just the way it's going right now with supplies and everything else. So yeah, so I'm with you. If you guys think if you can raise that, I'm with you on that, Ray. The other thing is, I'm kind of a driver. I take tours of different towns and places all around. And I grew up in Sheboygan, and we had a junky little park with a regular little in Sheboygan at Kings Park with a regular little shelter that was in there. And came home and saw this beautiful new shelter, very similar to what we're talking about, that has an area for holding events, and then also bathrooms open for public and everybody else, in an outside deck area for for the public to use. And it changed the look of that park tremendously. It turned in from a park that not a lot of people went to a park that has this beautiful new building. And I saw more people in that park through the summer than I have all the while growing up, and all the while coming back and visiting that park. So I think those kind of buildings, especially the one that we're putting in this brand new beautiful park that we're all trying to figure out how to make work, I think a standout building like that is an important thing. And if we can make it work financially, I think it's a great deal. And I think also that the use of the park, um, along with the decks, and whether it's being rented out in one way or the other, I still think everything around the park that's going to be added on to, like the deck area and everything else, is something that our whole public's going to use. And also all the people renting it out are all going to be community members that are renting it out for birthday parties and everything else. So community is getting use of it. So my long spiel there. So I support the 125, 150.
And this is Lauren. I also support the 125 to 1. That flexibility, and I like those points that Lester was making also. I know that we also talked about like alternate ways to access the park aside from driving, as far as like the parking situation goes. And I can't really remember exactly what was discussed around like bus routes that are nearby.
You cut out right at the end there, Lauren. I heard bus routes and
Yeah, sorry, I don't know, my mic randomly muted. But yeah, bus routes kind of nearby, and also, encouraging bike riding and having bike parking available and that sort of thing as well.
all right. I think I've heard in the consensus at least. And Deb, and the mayor, I hear your questions, concerns. I hear all that as well. And those are things that, we'll continue to work through. And there's policy driven things and there's design driven things that, come into play throughout this whole thing as well. So.
And it sounds like we have some time to work out programmatically whether or not it's automatically included the large deck space, or that's still open to the general public. It sounds like there are some other things that we have yet to cover. So appreciate the response to all the questions.
Yeah, you're correct. And there's, as we talked about, there's ways if, in part of the design, if we want to have a portion of the deck available to the public and a portion that is part of the rental, we can look at ways of doing that as well. So you're correct. Programmatically, we can continue to look at that as well. I think I'm good. So just so everybody knows at this point, I'll be sharing with the council. It's actually what we had put into our memo. Essentially, the agreement amendment for Smith Group is on the agenda for tomorrow night. We had to do that again in order to keep the process moving and keep Smith Group moving. And it was dependent on what happened here. And I will keep you posted, but I would expect if the council approves that agreement amendment tomorrow evening, Smith Group will continue to move forward on coming up with a final design that we'll be able to share with you soon. Amy, I have the direction I need if you're ready.
Okay, well then I guess you don't need anything else from us, right? We don't have to do a motion. You're all good.
No, we didn't have it for action. It was more discussion, and if I got a consensus, which we pretty much did, I'm good with that.
Okay, well then we can move on to new business. The dinghy racks for kayaks and canoes at Miller's Bay. I believe this is also you to kick off, right?
Yeah, and Amy, I want to be respectful of your commitment. Are you okay yet, or you need to head out?
I'm in the car and things are going good.
Okay. This is another discussion that we've had, a number of requests from the public as well, and people looking for a convenient way to have their kayak or canoe stored and easily accessible on the water in Oshkosh. We've had some people step forward saying we're willing to donate money to do something to make it happen. As many of you know who that kayak and canoe, getting into the river is very difficult with kayaks and canoes based on the boat speeds and the wakes and so forth. And what we took a look at is our sailboat mooring program that is down at Miller's Bay at Menominee Park. Many, many years ago, that was a very popular program. There were dozens and dozens of buoys out in the bay that people would tie their sailboats up to. And then in order to get out to their sailboat, we have dinghy racks that they would have their small dinghy boats stored on as part of that program. We also have, there's an on-land storage site as well as catamaran docks where people rent out from us annually to store, whether it's on land or on some of those docks. So we've got a variety of things going on there for the sailing community. But for that at least the last 10, 15 years, that the request for sailing mooring sites has gone down drastically. I think we're probably at about 10 to 12 right now that we need to accommodate. So we have these storage racks where people used to have their dinghies stored on for the mooring program. There's 8 racks with the availability to have 6 small boats basically stored on each rack. So we have the ability for about 48 boats to be stored there. So in talking with some of the individuals that had an interest in us looking at an option, I threw this out to some of them, and they said, I think that would work. We'd like to try to give it a shot and see how successful it is for us and for the community. And we talked about it internally and said, let's give it a try. We can rent them out on a first come, first served basis, just like we do for those other sites down there. So what we're recommending is that we go ahead and use some of those storage racks for citizens for kayaks and canoe storage for the summer season. What we took a look at, and what reason we really need to bring it to you is because it's a new program, a new fee. So we need your recommendation on the fee, which would then go to the Common Council. So what we're suggesting is a fee for the season of $50 for city residents, $75 for non-residents for rental of one of those rack units. We would work on them to make sure that they're able to be locked. People would have to supply their own locking or cabling, just like you would on any other sites. But just to give you a reason on why we chose that price, we looked at our catamaran docks and our on-land storage sites. And those are bigger boats, or they might be the smaller Hobie sails. But for $100 for the season for residents and $125 for non-residents. So we felt that 50% reduction in that price. I'm sorry. And just talking to a few of the individuals that expressed an interest, they felt that was fair as well. So we'd like to give it a try and want to see if there's any input here and any thoughts on the rental recommendation.
I just have a question about the storage and the securing. So would that individual have to provide their own insurance in the event that, I don't know, somebody cut the lock and took the boat, teens got out there in the middle of the night and went for a joyride? Just curious.
Yep, we have the similar type of information and forms that they complete for the other rental spaces down there. So it basically, it holds, we're not liable, the city's not liable. They accept that liability and responsibility. So yes, they would be responsible for that. If they wanted to put insurance on it, that would be their call. But yes, it's their responsibility, and we'd have that documented.
Are they permanent structures or are they easily moved or no?
They are permanent structures.
Okay.
Basically, steel tubing made into racks, concrete.
Okay. So if it's successful, we could potentially do it at other parks too, maybe? I mean, Miller's Bay is, for kayaking, it's just okay, Other parks might be better.
I think we'll have that discussion depending on which park we'd want to consider and what it might take. to get a storage unit down there because we have to make sure they're accessible and obviously people can get to them as well. So
Right.
it's a possibility. And, you know, your comment that Miller's Bay isn't the best for canoe, we hear the same from others in the river system because of the
Right.
waves and so forth. So, but we're open and listening, and that's again what we're trying to do here. Chad, did you have something? I thought you might have raised your hand. I'm sorry. Okay.
I'd like to suggest that we give priority to city residents. That's a pretty small number given the population and, you know, the demand for outdoor recreation. I'd like to suggest that we give priority to city residents.
And we could take a look. I'm not going to say no. I just want to make sure we're consistent with how we do all the sailboat mooring sites as well, Mayor, just so that we're consistent, hopefully. And we could try to work that into it as well.
I have a question that's maybe a little bit off. I remember when we talked about boat ramps and launches and all that stuff, that even kayaks and those boats are supposed to pay a fee to use the dock. Is this $50 or this storage fee, would that include that? I know, like, that fee, I guess, would it be like all year round use of the ramp and the storage place?
It is, and that's consistent with the sailboat, the mooring sites, as well as the use of the mooring plugs. So yes.
Okay.
I just want to say, my grandmother sold her lake house over a year ago. I inherited her kayak, and I have not taken it out yet because of the like whole getting it onto my car, taking it over, and I would definitely be someone who would use this, and I think the $50 fee is very fair.
Okay.
Awesome.
You talk about another spot. When last summer when we all met and we looked at where you put in the pay stations, that once I saw two put in kayaks while we were just there for a half an hour. I thought that was kind of interesting. So that must be a popular place, or maybe better than Miller's Bay. Becky mentioned, I think, of, you know, maybe another site kind of a thing. So
Okay.
Yep, I think
If-
Miller Bay is a good place to start to you kind of see what the interest is, and then Ray, the fees will stay at Miller's Bay, right?
Yes, these fees will be put into, it's the same, it's Miller's Bay Fund in our boat launch fund, but it's specifically for Miller's Bay. So yes, correct. If there's nothing else, we'll need the recommendation and to the Common Council because they would actually approve the fee on this then.
I make a recommendation. This is Amy.
I second.
I'll second.
Devin.
Second.
I think Devin got in there quickly.
All right, so then to vote, Bartelt,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Dirth,
Aye.
Groyle,
Aye.
Hudak,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Metz,
Aye.
Millet,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
All right, motion passed 9-0. Thank you.
And with that, I need to go. So Tony, if you could finish up with the last part.
With pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Bye-bye.
It looks like the next item on the agenda is staff reports. So back to Ray.
All right. What we wanted to do is give you some updates tonight on some of our facilities, and Jen will talk more programming related as well later. But the big one that we've been working on is the Pollock Community Water Park and what the operations will look like when we open after being closed last year because of the pandemic. Being closed for the year gave us an opportunity to hear from the few pools, I would say, across the state that did open and hear some of their experiences and how they set up for the season, things that worked, things that didn't work. So Jen and Chad have been working hard on coming up with some recommendations on the season. So what I wanted to share with everybody tonight was some of that information. Obviously, we are working with the recreation department to make sure that we have enough lifeguard and attendance staff. Chad and Jenny are working on making sure that we have enough maintenance, concessions, and front desk staff. So if you know anybody who's looking for summer jobs yet, have them get in touch with us or visit the city website. We do have still openings. We're optimistic that the recreation department will be successful in locating enough guards for the season. What we're looking to do as far as the season goes, opening day, we're planning for Saturday, June 12th, and having the season right now, depending on sports seasons and things, staff availability going through August 18th. Again, we're being hopeful and optimistic that we have the staffing we'll need. One of the big changes we're looking to do this year is we're going to limit capacity. And we're also going to have blocks of times that people can come to the pool. What we're looking at is we're using about 25% of our facility capacity, which is about 565 people. Our whole facility capacity is 2,300 something, just to give you an idea. So what we're looking to do is break it down into time blocks from Jenny, I might need help, but I think I have it in front of me. I'm sorry. From 10 until 11:30, we would have lap swim, the lazy river walking, and parent tot time. So from 10 to 11:30, we would take up to 560 people. I don't see that happening just because that's usually a quieter part of the day. We would close the facility at 11:30 until noon, which would give us time to do some cleaning, disinfecting, and we'll be doing that. We've got cleaning and other procedures in place that we'll be doing more frequently, obviously, throughout the day. But this will give us that half hour, get people out of the facility, get it cleaned up, wiping down things. And then from noon until 3, we would open for open swim to the public. Again, we would allow in up to 565 patrons during that time. We would then close, we would clear the facility at 3 o'clock. From 3 until 4, we would make sure the facility's cleared out. We would then have cleaning, disinfecting going on throughout the entire facility again, and then open from 4 until 7 for another 3-hour block of open swim. From what we are hearing from other communities that tried this last year, it seemed to be successful. We're going to start this way, and this is what our proposal is going to be, and we'll wait and see how things shake out as we get further into summer, how the vaccinations are going, how people are comfortable. We are going to be, just like our outdoor facilities, we are going to be strongly encouraging wearing face coverings when you're not inside the water. Our staff at this point, when they are working, will be wearing face coverings. Lifeguards, obviously, when they are in a surveillance position, will not be wearing face coverings if they need to report for an emergency, obviously. But I think at this point, we're very comfortable. We've met, Jenny, Chad, and I have met with the Recreation Department staff, and we've kicked these items around. And I think at this point, this is the direction we want to head. There's a number of other things, and I won't get into all the details, but concessions, you're going to see it's going to be more prepackaged goods, things that there's less handling by our staff. Our staff will have masks, gloves, and all that type of things. Just a lot more precautions in place for our staff as well.
Ray, can I just ask an educational question here? Forgive me if I'm coming across somewhat ignorant here, but council did receive an email today from someone about masks in water parks and pool areas and such. And given that this is outdoors, help me understand, is it because of primarily the locker room and restrooms and that we're looking at limiting capacity outdoors? Because this individual was from the YMCA, was talking about how the CDC has indicated that there's not a high likelihood of transmission in pools and water parks and that. So I don't know if that's accurate information or not, but can you just help me understand what our biggest concern is on the capacity other than like, elbow to elbow space?
I would say we're going to try to err on the side of caution a little bit as we come out of the pandemic, knowing that we may have some community members that are a little more comfortable being in crowds, but others that are not. So we wanted to gauge it that way a little bit. And as far as the masks, yes, correct that it is outdoors. We are not requiring it, just like we don't require it on ball fields, basketball courts, anywhere else in our parks. We're gonna highly recommend it. And again, that may change based on the recommendations from the CDC. I think for us, it's some of those high touch surfaces, families commingling outside of their household and those types of things. So I think we looked at it as being a little precautionary than just opening the gates as we were pre-COVID. That's all I have on my report because I've been spending a lot of time with Lakeshore stuff. So I'm gonna be done, Tony.
Thanks, Ray. Well, I can say that I'm very excited for lap swim to start again. I was missing it last summer a lot. So, Chad, you are next.
Oh, all righty. Just a couple things here for you guys tonight to go through, but just want to do a quick update on the Roe Park Ice Rink. As you know, our season has come to a close with the good weather coming forward. I think everyone's looking forward to spring. But for our short season that we did have, things worked out well for the rink down at Roe Park. I know Jenny will talk more about the programs that were there from the past month or so that turned out very well. Just wish we could have a better ice skating season going forward. Very challenging to create, but the situation there worked out very well. So just as you notice, as things thaw out, we'll be removing things off the rink itself and removing panels to let it thaw out here and drain out so we can get things picked up. And you'll see restoration taking place. As you recall, before the rink was put out, we leveled that entire site with new black dirt in areas to blend into the park to take away the grade differences we had for this rink that we had challenges with at Riverside Park. But we will be restoring that all to turf area and marking corners for us for future setup with this type of rink in next year. So hopefully it'll be a lot more fluid and smooth going into future seasons. So that's about it on that for that project. I don't know if anyone had any questions regarding the ice rink or concerns offhand. Hearing
No
none.
concern.
The other. Oh, I'm sorry.
Said no concerns. You guys did a very good job. It was nice to have that downtown and the way it looked, and it was overall just great in the events that took place out there. So.
Well, you being close down there, Lester, with the YMCA, appreciate those comments going forward. Hope it was a good flow for people in and out from the facility, utilizing that rink as well. And of course, we always appreciate the donations and the Community Foundation for their efforts in helping this move forward too on an annual basis. Updates regarding West Haven Circle Park play equipment in the ball field. We have our bids out for those two projects. Actually, we just received the bid packets back from vendors last week in regards to playgrounds. We're working on going through all those at this time. But you will probably start seeing more activity out at West Haven as things dry out with us removal of the existing equipment and also doing some fine tuning to get ready for the field improvements too. But West Haven is generally a wet park and usually a challenge for us in the spring. But with these conditions right now, let's hope for everything come together. We can keep moving with these projects too. So as you'd also noticed, and I know Bill talked more about the tree removals we worked out there too, but we have a lot of park cleanup to do now that the snow is coming to a receding. Definitely a lot of cleanup right now. And that's all I have for tonight.
Dad, this is just I'm not, it's great. I'm by West Haven all the time. So I know, I see all your lot of work. What happens to the old equipment? I'm just curious. I just wonder.
Yeah, well, we have two options. Right now, we're working with playgrounds across the world Previous to playground equipment has gone through where they've come and disassembled this and use it in different areas or different countries to work from. So that's one program. I'm just reaching out in contact with Tim now to see if they're still active with this due to COVID. If they're sending crews out, then that's what we'll find out from there. Other sections, usually it goes for just recycling afterwards. We don't try to reallocate that anywhere. There's a reason why we're replacing it based on the codes and the changes and where, but we don't reissue that. It basically goes to scrap or recycled.
That's a great question, Deb. Any other questions for Chad? Okay, I think Bill, you are up.
Okay, thank you, Tony. I don't have a whole lot in the way of updates, but last week we received word from the National Arbor Day Foundation that we have met all the requirements for our Tree City USA award for this year. So this puts us at 40 years, 40 consecutive years as a Tree City USA, and we are actually the second longest Tree City USA running here in Wisconsin. So it's kind of a nice accomplishment. It's great that Oshkosh got on board with the program early on and was consistent over the years in meeting all the requirements and keeping that project moving forward. So typically the award is presented by the Wisconsin DNR during our Arbor Day program, which typically is held at the end of April. Last year it was not held due to the COVID restrictions that the DNR had to work with. We're hoping that we can actually have a live event this year. Otherwise, last year we did sort of a virtual type event, which was successful, but it wasn't as fun as having the school kids and other dignitaries available and actually planting a tree on site. So our intention is to kind of work on our last year's plan a little bit and do a program with UW Oshkosh, and then hopefully everything will go as planned and we can plant a tree somewhere out in the community for that event. Other updates include our continuing effort to mitigate emerald ash borer in the community. The guys have been working pretty tirelessly on removing affected ash trees throughout the city and primarily on the west side where we're currently in our pruning schedule. We've taken out a number of ash trees at West Haven Circle Park, which some of you may have noticed, and also at South Park. We unfortunately had to take out some of the ash that are kind of near the playground area this winter. We have a number of them along South Park Avenue that have to be removed yet, but the ground kind of thawed out quick on us, and so we're going to hold off on those removals until we get into a little better drying conditions so that we can operate our equipment in there. Some folks have been asking if we will be replanting, and that is always our intention, to replace trees as we take them out. Unfortunately, they're not going to be as large as what we've had to remove, but we'll be utilizing some other species in some of those areas, and of course try to keep the park safe by having some of those dangerous trees out of there. Other updates include our usual spring tree planting projects. Typically what we do is we have a request list from residents if they would like a tree planted on the terrace. And some of that revolves around some of the trees where we removed as well. So we'll be replacing trees here this spring under our normal program. To date, we have over 100 requests for tree planting, and this is primarily for the terraces. So we've got things kind of in process. So we have, kind of a full agenda on the tree planting area as well. Hopefully, depending on nursery availability, we should have most of the trees on hand in May, and we'll be working through May and into June probably on some of the tree replacements. So that's all I have for right now. If anybody has any questions, sure to pipe up.
Bill, this is Lori. I just I wanted to jog your memory about a conversation we had a little while back, and And perhaps when we talk about future agenda items, maybe this could be placed on a future agenda. So I just want to talk a little bit about the Upper Midwest Hazelnut Development Initiative. It's a just, I guess, a question, and that is whether or not, we might explore those native hazelnut trees. It's quite an interesting endeavor, and we've had a handful of folks who've requested experimentation with urban orchards or micro orchards, whether it be some kind of fruit or nuts, etc. And I'm just curious whether or not you're hearing any of that, or whether or not this might be something we can, have a discussion in a future agenda item.
Sure, I think it's a viable idea. I did do a little bit of research following your suggestion and contact information. Did discover that there is kind of an active nursery down in the southwest part of the state that is involved with this. Um, I, the hazelnuts are typically more of a shrubby species, so I think they'd be suitable for more of a natural type area. And we have several areas that we will at some point be doing some landscape reconstruction on, including Rush Park, possibly North High Conservancy. Some of those areas I think would be suitable as by utilizing hazelnut as an understory plant. So, I'm completely open to that. I think it's an efficient means of helping to replenish areas that don't have any natural regeneration, like those sites that I just mentioned. So I think, certainly it would be worthwhile to kind of experiment with a little bit. I would expect that we could have some success. And if there's some folks in the area who would like to kind of have some level of involvement in that, I think it would be kind of a nice project.
Might these be also possibly appropriate in some of the more natural western Lakeshore Park area potentially?
Yeah, I think once a lot of the land work has been accomplished out there, I think there would certainly be areas that we could pocket in hazelnut. I think that would be a nice treatment, especially on areas that have some slope to them. That would alleviate the need for excessive maintenance. Most of the plan is kind of at Lakeshore Park is leaning toward more natural type landscaping anyway. So I think that would be certainly a great area to incorporate something to that effect. And there's some other options as well, besides just hazelnut too, of course. But I think that would be kind of a nice site to work in, some kind of unique species.
Any other questions for Bill? Okay, Jenny, you are last but not least.
Okay. So like Ray mentioned, really working on hoping to bring pretty much all of our events back in 2021. So it'll be an exciting year. Spring is always a really busy time for us. And this year it's really even busier because we have to go through and pretty much do a lot of the COVID planning. Some of our sponsors have asked for different written plan of what we plan on doing at the facility, so they know that as a sponsor, they feel comfortable in sponsoring our events. Some of the sponsors, they are not going to be there. They themselves as a business are not going to be out in 2021 yet, but they do want to help, all the people and events that they sponsor. So I've been working a lot with our sponsors and working up COVID plans and pretty much all of our facilities. Ray mentioned the pool, but for our events, we'll be kind of sticking with that 25% for the Leach events as well. Movie nights, Tuesday night concerts, all of those things. So really coming up with a plan, what we're going to put into place, and so that we can carry forward with the event. So things have been going good. We just got confirmation that we will be hosting our Tuesday night concert series this summer. So Verve Credit Union is in to sponsor those. So yes, Becky, super excited. They'll look a little different than past years. We won't be having bounce houses at events this summer. We won't be doing like hands-on stuff. For instance, in 2020, we had planned like a carnival night before one of the Tuesday night concert series, and we've done some different events where kids like touch parts and play games and that kind of stuff we're going to be staying away from yet this year. So, but we will be hosting them. They'll look a little bit different, but we're looking for a different type of entertainment. I was just working on that the other day, looking at doing more of like, you know, having a juggler there and having a stilt walker, having people walk around and entertain the kids rather than, you know, something where they're all standing in line by each other and touching things. And so it's just being creative and doing things a little differently. Our movie nights will be happening too. I just recently finished up the last of those getting sponsored, so we'll be able to bring those back as well. So that's really exciting. What else? We, like Ray mentioned, the pool. I'm in the process of working with our sponsor for the pool on how we can mix things up a little bit and make them look a little different at the pool this year. Because again, some of those events we're used to doing, we can't really do. So I'm working on that as well. Our sponsor for Wildlife Wednesdays, the Oshkosh Zoological Society, they have decided to move forward with those. So this summer, we actually will have a program every single Wednesday, starting the last Wednesday in May and going on through the last Wednesday in August. So they'll be at a variety of times throughout the day. You know, some earlier ones for, you know, maybe moms and dads with little tots, maybe in the afternoon geared towards more older kids once, you know, parents are done with work and can bring them down or whatnot. So working on getting those booked and planned. Food trucks have been going great this year. We are going to be having food trucks at our Tuesday night concerts. We're going to be having food trucks at the movie nights this year. New in 2021, we will be bringing the Brews on the Bay back. It was supposed to be new for 2020, but of course that changed with COVID. So I'm in the process of working up those Brews on the Bay, which will be beer gardens hosted at the Kiwanis Shelter in Menominee Park. And then the amusement center will be open as well. And these are going to be, you know, community, family friendly, bands, food trucks, you know, just a place to come out and hang out. Again, we'll look a little bit different this year because we won't be having the bounce houses and some of the family entertainment, but we are looking at different ways of kind of having some family things there that people can do. So currently working on those right now, getting the band booked for those. So yeah, just lots of fun stuff going on. The one thing, like Ray did mention, is definitely if you know any, you know, teens looking for summer work, the applications have definitely been coming in slow. A lot of the people who I do have in positions are returning from last year. Do have a couple new ones coming on, but really have quite a few positions opened, and they're certainly kind of coming in slower than we'd like to see. So if you do know anybody who's looking for a summer job to work outside at all of our great facilities, certainly have them fill out an application. So other than that, I think that's a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, lots of exciting things happening this summer and getting back on track with some things. And again, they're going to be a little bit different, but it's going to be good. It's going to be good, and we'll be able to offer some stuff for the community. So any questions on any of that stuff?
Thanks, Jenny. Now that food trucks are back, I'll definitely have to do those lap swim the days that I was talking about. So, Stacy, do we have to do? You mentioned something about voting replacement. With that, since Amy left, we have to do that before we adjourn.
Yeah, in order to adjourn, someone has to move, someone has to second, and then I'll have to do a roll call for voting as well.
But I mean, do we have to replace Amy before we vote to do that?
You can have Tanisha vote. It'll be our first official vote for Tanisha.
Okay, cool. Well, Tanisha's in, and so we just need a motion to adjourn then. Or I guess I should ask, is there any other business before we adjourn? Okay, see none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. This is Deb.
Second.
All right. Bartelt,
Aye.
Dearth,
Aye.
Groyle,
Aye.
Hudak,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
Metz,
Aye.
Millet,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
and Alvarado.
Aye.
All right, motion passed 9-0. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone
night.
take care.